People of Reddit, what is a surprisingly unknown survival fact that everyone should know? This is a tip for surviving with mental health issues. I often ignore my own advice, but when I remember to do it, it usually helps. When you're feeling super depressed, ask yourself these questions. Am I thirsty? Am I hungry? Am I tired and in need of sleep? Have I showered today? Have I gotten up and walked around in a while? Have I gotten out of bed and dressed? I find that a surprising number of times something else on that list needs attending to. And once done, I often feel better. There's no cure for depression. There's just learning to manage and live with it. Hope that helps someone. If you are ever involved in gunfire or a shooting of any sort, a sharp cracking sound means the gunfire is aimed at you. A deep thumping noise means the gunfire is aimed away from you. Anything standing its ground and being loud just wants you to leave. If you don't, they will attack. When they are relatively quiet, they have already decided to attack. This goes for humans too. If you are stuck with canned food but no can opener, flip the can upside down and rub it back and forth on asphalt or concrete. While a can opener cuts through the lid, the retaining ring holding the lid on is actually quite thin and can be abraded in 30 seconds or less. Don't starve to death next to a flat of alpha-jetty in your bunker. If you're about to pass out from being exposed to heat, pour cold water on your forearms. Ice works even better. This is an old farmer trick. You will feel the effects immediately. You will stop being dizzy and feel better almost immediately. If you're walking and suspect someone is following you, pretend like you're calling someone on the phone asking them their whereabouts. Then face a direction your follower can't see, like the corner of a building, and raise your hand and start waving it saying, "Yes, I see you. I'm over here." Your follower will think you're meeting someone who's around the corner and will go the other way. If you are in the car, to confirm someone is following you, take 4 right turns, and if they are following you around the block, call for help or drive to a busy location police station. If you somehow are in a situation where you feel like you could drown and have no energy to go on, turn on your back and do the backstroke. Saved my life while at the beach last week after getting sucked out by rip current. Float for your life. During the winter, it is way better to be slightly cold than it is to sweat. If you start to sweat, you can go hypothermic way faster. Reminds me of a quote from Bear Grylls. I need to work quickly before hypothermia sets in, but not too quickly, because then I'll start to sweat, the sweat will freeze, and then hypothermia sets in. When wild camping and hiking in Scotland, some Dutch outdoor guy told us to always keep tampons to start a fire. He was so right. In a wet environment where all the leaves and branches are moist and the wind blows like crazy, we sometimes needed 5 hours to start a fire, and we needed the fire to at least have a warm meal in the night. They're the best fire starter. They're lightweight and tiny, easy to carry. You can pull them apart and there's a lot of easily burning material that you can use as a fire starter. They also frequently come in sealed plastic wrappers, so are basically waterproof. Pack a whistle. There's no chance your voice will hold out yelling at the top of your lungs, and whistles carry long distances. Especially handy if you've injured yourself and need to rely on others finding you. SOS in Morse code is, so 3 short blasts, 3 longer ones, 3 short, pause, and repeat. This is an especially handy and harmless device to give kids that are along for a hike, along with, if you get separated, stop walking and blow the whistle lots, and we'll come to you. In general, signals in groups of 3 are signs that you need help. Anything that's clearly not natural counts. That could be piles of rocks, signal fires, strips of cloth tied to a tree, etc. Obviously you want it to be visible, audible to whoever might be searching for you. But the group of 3 means that it's not an accident or a coincidence, and so draws attention. If you get stuck in your car in the snow, stay with your vehicle. Hypothermia makes you delirious and you can wander the wrong direction and freeze to death. Your vehicle is also a lot easier to locate than you are. If you want to prevent being the victim of a crime, it is your subconscious that is going to tell you that you are in danger. You will think something isn't quite right. If you ever have a feeling that something is wrong, get out of there immediately. That's millions of years of instincts. Go to trust that lizard brain. Biting is an underrated technique in a life or death fight. How many times in an apocalyptic style world does a character get pushed on the ground and literally just submit to being punched out? Seriously, when someone means to kill you or advance on your orientation, bite them. Just because you're drinking water doesn't mean you're safe. You need to take in salt as well. I've seen this kick people's asses big time. They drink and drink and drink water but still overheat, throw up, pass out because they didn't take in any salt or electrolytes. If you are drinking plenty of water but still showing signs of dehydration, headache, fatigue, muscle aches, blurred vision, stumbling around, you may be low on electrolytes. Salty foods can really help with this, but oral rehydration salts such as Pedialyte work even better and should probably be in more people's backpacks. Disclaimer: those symptoms aren't limited to dehydration and can also occur due to heat exhaustion, hypothermia, or altitude sickness. You just solved a big problem for me. Holy shit, I forgot about my salts. Barrel cactus in the Sonoran Desert are not full of water as is commonly portrayed. Instead, they are full of acidic solutions that induce vomiting and diarrhea if consumed. These can easily be fatal for a dehydrated person in the desert. The barrel cactus fruit, by contrast, is one of the most agreeable edibles in the cactus world. They are easy to pick, thornless, and tasty. I was led to believe that you should drink cactus juice. It'll quench you. Nothing's quencher, and it's the quenchiest. If you or your child almost drowns, go see a doctor even though you seem fine. If water has been able to enter your lungs, you can be secondary drowning. If you are lost in the wilderness, if you have shelter and a source of water, and if you have reason to believe people will be looking for you, you are usually better to stay put than to try to find your way out. Wandering around lost, you expend a lot of energy. You could easily get into a far worse situation, and anyone looking for you will likely start at your last known or expected location, which, if you are lost, you might be wandering farther from. This is not always the case. It depends on if you are injured or not, and the nature of the injuries, on your relative safety where you are at, how far you are relative to your expected or last known location, how visible you are, and a number of other situational factors. It is often worth a low-risk climb to a better vantage point if possible. People have died a few hundred meters from a road which could have led them to safety. I've participated in a number of lost personnel searches. This is very good advice. If they know what area you were in, they'll simply grid it off and start doing line searches. If you stay stationary, they will find you. If you move around, you could move out of the search area or into an area they've already searched. Stay your butt in one spot if you want to live. You can squeeze relatively safe water out of moss. Obviously you should still boil it, and it's going to have some dirt, but it's way better than drinking out of a steam or puddle. The amount of research I've done on moss for my thesis proves that this is indeed a safe method. The ability to weave, looked at as more of a craft than a survival skill. But my grandma taught me that if you can weave, you can make clothing, shoes, traps, shelter, etc. with nothing more than the vegetation on hand. This was hammered home later when watching that show with naked survival people. The guy harassed the girl because she spent most of the first 2 days weaving, but in the end he had to be taken out because he was sick, yet there she was having crab for dinner. If you accidentally disturb a beehive or wasp nest and are being swarmed, do not run for water. It seems intuitive that jumping in water will keep the bees off you, but actually they will wait for you to resurface and resume stinging you. Instead, run as fast and as far away as you can. Wasps are territorial and will not easily leave their home range, so once you leave their comfort zone, you're pretty much safe. Or set yourself on fire. Taps forehead. A mirror is the best way to signal for help. You can use the reflection of the sun directed at a boat or plane like your sibling would to annoy you. The proper way to use a mirror to signal for help is to hold up one hand with a peace sign and position it so that whatever you are trying to signal can be seen between your fingers. Then shine the light from the mirror on your fingers. This guarantees that whatever you are signaling can see the light. Your car is in general much easier to locate than you are, so unless you're absolutely certain that you can get to a safe place, it's better to stay close to your car for any searching party. Of course, if it's stranded in the middle of a road and any incoming car will hit it, You probably shouldn't stay in your car, and in the desert it's better to be in the shadow of the car than inside where you will get cooked alive. But the general principle still remains. I used to be in military cadets when I was a teenager. The most important thing I've been taught to take care of is my feet. He mentioned how if you're gonna wash one thing that it should be your feet, as you take them for granted. Think of how difficult it is to get out of a survival situation where you have trench foot. Even if you're in a spot where you can't wash your feet, just take your boots, shoes and socks off and let them air out and dry. Water filters are really easy to make. One layer of gravel and a layer of sand split half and half on your container will pull most stuff out. Just boil the water before drinking. Glasses lenses can be used to start a fire. Think magnifying glass. Much easier than the 2 sticks method. It's better to run a little colder when outside in winter than to sweat. If you sweat and you have no shelter, you die. Being colder just burns more calories. To a degree, applies at any temperature below +10°C generally. Irrigation canals and culverts make mediocre shelter from tornadoes, but better than nothing. Lay flat and point your feet in the direction of the wind if in an open ditch. Same advice applies for explosions. Lightning will strike the same place twice. Coyotes are not friendly nor wily. If lost in the wilderness, order of survival is shelter, fire, water, security, food. Half of surviving is staying positive. Landlines will work if the power is out. The glasses trick only works with certain prescriptions. But I have also been told by an internet stranger a drop of water on the lenses will make it work if you're nearsighted. Never tried this myself though, so take it with a grain of salt. A lot of landlines are now VoIP, internet phones. These are power dependent. I didn't realize this, as I live in a province the physical size of Texas, size of France for our European friends, with only a little over 1 million people in it. We're a little slow on the upgrade outside of major centers. Water filter details. You'll need a waterproof container. Poke holes in the bottom and fill 1/3 to 1/2 ways with gravel. Fill the rest with the finest sand you can find. This will pull things like large sticks, some parasites and mud out of the water. You might have to run it through a couple of times if your container is smaller, like a water bottle. It isn't guaranteed to remove bacteria, smaller parasites and viruses out though, so boil thoroughly before drinking still. Most chemicals like pesticides will make it through as well, so try to avoid water sources downstream of agricultural areas. Bonus points if you add a layer of crushed charcoal in. It will help filter out some of the smaller stuff and absorb some of the pollution in a water supply as well. Charcoal layer should go between the sand and the gravel. Then simply flow water through it. If you are disorientated underwater, hold your hand over your mouth and exhale lightly. Bubbles go up. If you are disorientated on land, you can let some spit dribble out. Spit goes down. I've hiked and backpacked thousands of miles over the years, and the simplest thing that could make or break your survival in many outdoor situations, especially a lost in the wilderness situation, it's a band-aid. Always bring a band-aid or moleskin hiking, not for cuts, per se, but for blisters. If you start to feel irritation when walking long distances, you have to address the spot quickly. A blister can absolutely debilitate even the most in shape, athletic people. It's what every seasoned hiker learned the hard way at some point. Always be wary of children that have lost their parents, as it's a common ruse for abduction, especially if the child tries to lead you somewhere. What you should do in those situations is keep the child with you and contact emergency services. It may be in your instincts to follow a lost child to where they claim they last saw their parents, but it isn't worth the risk. Let the authorities take care of it. If the child is lost, you'll have helped them. If they aren't, you've dodged a bullet. Always play it safe in situations like that. Weirdly enough, I learned this lesson from Fallout 4 Mayo. It wasn't a child, but some random woman was crying and screaming for help, and when I approached her, she had me follow her into some abandoned building. Sure enough, as soon as we enter, she runs into a back room and a bunch of bad guys start shooting at me. SMH. When I was a producer on The Amazing Race, our security team always briefed us at the safest floors. In general, in a hotel with 4 through 7. Above the 4th floor is the safest zone from any kind of bomb or explosive that might be driven or tossed into a building, and below the 7th floor gives you the best chance of survival from a fire. I got so many other great travel tips from them, but that one has always stood out, and to this day, I request a room between those floors. If you're trapped in an extremely cold environment, a rudimentary igloo will keep you relatively warm if you're smart about it. They keep heat in fairly well. However, always be sure to mark where you are with something that won't get covered in snow, so if rescue comes they don't miss you in the snow. If you hear of a mass shooting currently taking place in a location where a loved one is, like their workplace, school, church, the mall they said they were visiting, etc., you may feel very tempted to call them. Don't. If they're alive, they are hiding and trying to stay invisible. If their phone rings or even vibrates, it will draw attention to them, quite possibly that of the shooter, and give away their hiding space. Don't try to contact them at all until you are certain that the perpetrator, have been stopped. Not a survival tip, but if you see dead elephants and whales, stay away from them. They can explode like a ticking time bomb. Contrary to popular belief, if an alligator is chasing you, you should not run and zigzag. Do one zig and then run straight. The alligator is not going to try to follow the zigzag. It will just run for you straight and you'll be slower. Do one zig so that the alligator will have to do one zig if it wants to get you, and then just run in a straight line like your butt is on fire. Do not provoke an alligator or crocodile. This is meant for people that somehow accidentally provoke them. I am not an expert. I was told this by a guy that worked with handling alligators. If you leave an alligator alone, they will leave you alone. Was told that crocs were more aggressive. Just stay the frick away from both types of animals. Imagine you look from the alligator's paw if you zigzag. Alligators probably all like, yet this is natural selection at its finest. When anyone talks about survival skills, everyone jumps to the conclusion is that the scenario is that you are lost in the forest or wilderness or something, and tips are often things like how to read stars for directions or make a fire out of sticks, etc. Survival skills also apply if you are in a big city, or maybe survival skills in prison, which could include how to stay safe and out of trouble best as you can. Or for those on a tight budget, survival skills could be how to make the most out of what money you have. During a thunderstorm, inside your car is one of the safest places to be. Yes, the metal may attract the lightning, but it will just run down the sides, it isn't going to penetrate. Street smarts. Throws money clip. A red line just under your skin, starting at a cut and tracing its way up your limb. That's blood poisoning. Go get medical help right away. When boiling down water in the winter, remember that ice is 90% water, 10% air. Snow is 90% air, 10% water. Melt ice, not snow. You can remove the top of most cars' seats to break the windows of your car in case you can't open the doors. Especially useful if you drive into a lake or something like that. Edit. Not all cars can get this done. Not all are removable or sturdy enough for this, but it's an option of last resort. Just get a window hammer. They're dirt cheap and often come as part of a tool you wanted anyways. In my case, it's also a seatbelt cutter, pocket knife, and magnesium strip. Magnesium strips are fire starters. Strike them with steel to get sparks. I have 2 I learned in self-defense classes. Test your pepper spray before you have to ever use it. Imagine how much angrier your attacker will be when you pull it out and find it doesn't even work because it might have been faulty, or you weren't familiar with using it and fumbled. If someone is pulling you, it is much more effective to push back against them than it is to pull in the opposite direction. Use their flow of force against them to try and make them stumble or fall. If they tug, maybe pretend to tug back and wait for them to pull harder. Then force yourself forward in their direction as hard as possible. They don't expect the weight to shift like that without a fight, and by overcompensating their force, they may fall backward. I've got 2. If you are ever caught in a rip current, swim perpendicular to it. If you swim into it, you will die. If you let it carry you out to sea and aren't a strong swimmer, you will die. If anyone ever is trying to get you to a second location via abduction, fight like heck and make a massive scene. Even if you are killed on the spot, that's better than whatever they've got in store for you. I've been caught in a rip current, This advice is incredibly useful to know, because without it you're also going to panic real hard when swimming towards the shore doesn't work. If you are at the beach and see the tide go in really far, like you can see abnormal amount of beach where the water should be, run the frick away and get to high ground as quickly as possible because a tsunami may be coming. If you can see that tsunami wave crest approaching, it's already too late. That wave is much faster than you. If you have a watch with hands and dial, not digital display, you can use it as a compass. Hold the watch flat and point the hour hand at the sun. Halfway between the hour hand and 12 o'clock points south. You use the shorter gap to 12. So if the hour hand is a 4, 2 would be south. If the hour hand is at 8, 10 would be south. There's a few problems such as night time and when the sun is directly overhead, but it helps in a pinch. Put stick in ground, trace shadow, wait a while, trace new shadow. You now know which way is west. Walk against the flow of traffic. I'm shocked at how many people I see walking with traffic. I've always heard you're supposed to walk towards traffic, and if you're riding a bike, go with it. If you're walking against traffic, you're able to see cars and jump out of the way if one comes towards you. Biking with traffic because impact won't be as bad compared to a head-on collision. While on the platform waiting for a train subway, stand sideways facing the direction the train is coming. This is so that your body is facing parallel to the tracks, and if someone pushes you or bumps into you, you will not fall into the tracks. There have been cases of crazy folks just shoving people onto the tracks. If you are facing the track, you can only stop your fall if you step your foot forward, which you might not be able to. If you are standing sideways, not only can you see someone coming at you from the side, but your feet are planted in such a way that you can resist a shove. Facing the direction the train is coming for also allows you to see that a train is coming. A towel is the most useful thing to have. You can dry yourself if you are wet, but it is also a blanket if you are cold, can give shade if it is warm, or you can use it to wipe your sweat. It's a hat, a cushion, a bag. Wrap it round your head to ward off noxious fumes or avoid the gaze of the ravenous bug-blotter beast of Trowel. If you get bit by a venomous snake, the best course of action is to get to the hospital as soon as possible. Sucking out the venom does not work and could cause an infection. Sucking kits do not work. My EMT instructor held up her car keys during the snake bite lesson. This is all you need to know about snake bite treatment. Dessert tip. Always have water in the car. Lots. Always have a couple of large trash bags. Can be used as a poncho in storms and also to make a solar still. Always carry a sturdy comb for removing jumping cactus quickly and effectively. Never step over rocks. Always step on the rocks and then step as far off it as you can. Rattlesnakes are no joke. Never ever 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 hang out in canyons, ditches, or any low, narrow areas. It may not be raining anywhere near you, but flash floods could take you out in an instant. Dessert tip. Don't go to the desert. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.